Good morning, folks, and welcome. Right, this is like a second start. This is the end of the video that I have been making. I was sent a piece of shell Cordovan by Maxime from horsecordovan.com for a look at what I think of it and how I feel about it. Well, it first turned up. Shell Cordovan is an unusual leather insofar as it's not cow. Well, it's not unusual, not at all. We get leather from many different creatures, but it comes from horse. It's the horse's arse. Now, an interesting thing, because I was speaking to Peter at the Identity store in Matlock about this. Now, Peter is a little bit of an expert, well, not a little bit, he is an expert on leather, and has quite a talent in spotting leather and where it's from. In addition to that, he knows quite an awful lot about how leather's produced in this modern day and age. Now, Peter tells me that shell Cordovan is unusual insofar as the outside of the leather, the hair side, becomes the inside, and the inside becomes the finished, the outside. So this was the flesh side at one point, and as a result of that, it's reversed. Now, the horse has been designing this piece of leather for millions of years through evolution, and this one particular part on the back side of the horse has developed such a strength and tightness that it's become incredibly desirable. Hence we have horse leather sold as shell Cordovan, the most desirable. I mean, this stuff from horse Cordovan in Italy, it's £55 a foot. That's a lot of money. £110, €140, works out probably, if you wanted to ship it over, $140. So it's expensive leather. Is it worth the money? I'm not feeling it. It's lovely leather to work. It's tight, it's strong. I will say you need to be cautious. It repels glue and stain like you wouldn't believe. It doesn't like any of it. To the point of I have had issues sticking this together. It keeps on jumping apart. It doesn't like it. And edging, you know, you've got to pay quite a bit of attention to this. So I thought I'd have a go at making a dinky little pouch out of it. It's a nonsense pouch. It's not for anything in particular, but it'll look nice hung up in the workshop, and I can then say to people, because people come down and mention shell Cordovan, they can there have a look and see it actually works. It's a little 7-inch pouch. It's going to have a little strap go over the top of it and then just hang. Nothing special. It's not particular to it, and I shall get round to that as and when time allows. It's lined. I don't think you'll see that so clearly. It's lined with cream pigskin and stitched with cream thread, and when the strapping goes on it, it equally will be. Yeah. This is a pack I'm in the process of making for a work along video. So I've already shot the video of cutting out the pattern, but not made the bag yet. And I was having to think about what I can make with this and what can be done, because I can just cut a piece out, stitch it to another piece, and there's a phone case, and that's it, and the review's done. But it would be nice to know how this leather bends, how it splits, how it joins together, how thin we can get it, and can we do a pipe seam, a rolled edge, what a thin edge looks like if we line it in contrast. Do we need to black it up? Will it burnish? I'd like to look at all of those to test the leather. Just something simple like laying out the pattern, marking it and cutting it. You can feel it's a bit of quality. Okay, so I've just measured the thickness of the leather, and it's 1.93. I'm going to call it 2mm. That works out, as I understand it, to about 5 ounce or 5/64 for our American cousins. So I want to cut it in half. So it's 2mm thick. I want 1mm from it. So I've locked my bar off at 1mm. I'm going to pop it in. I'm going to cut this face up. I'm just going to move it along a little bit so my bar or guide is locked at the bar. And then we're going to, you see this is giving up a little bit now. That's not going to do us any favours, because if that gives up we can't get the rest of the cut. And I want to cut it face up, because if we do it face down, when we pull, we're stretching. Although to be fair, that being said, that doesn't stretch that bad. Let's test it. I've got a longer piece here. I'll stitch it from the back, because if this maintains its body as it has done, we can turn that round. It actually splits a dream, and we can see that there's a little bit of variation, but it's not so much pull that it's going to distort. Some leather, certainly the softer shoulders, if we tried to get a mil thick face down, it would just stretch and distort and it wouldn't be usable. This is actually standing up fairly well, but the flesh side isn't actually that strong, to the point of that gives up. That's quite surprising. I've got a bit of scrap here and I'm just going to have a go at beveling it. So let's find out what happens. That actually bevels up quite nicely. So, lovely cut, very straight, very even. Let me give that a little bit of moisture. You know what I'm doing there. Let's give it a rub. Right, I've stuck it at a bit of an angle to catch the light, so you can see how smooth and shiny that is. All I've done with that is give it a lick. Yes, I know, that's gross. And a little hand slicker, nothing more. I've got a screw crease, cold. I'm not applying any heat at all. About 3mm in from the edge, and I'm just applying a nice crease in there. And I have to say, I'm not working very hard at all, but that's come out really, really nicely. Very sharp, very. Okay, the edge coat is dry. Let's add a bit of wax. Flatten it off. Give it another burnish. No, not at all. Give it another slick. That's me doing this at arm's length and trying to look at the video screen to make sure I've got it on the middle so you can see it. Not too shabby at all. Let's give that a buff. Well, I have to say I didn't expect it to be able to take an edge that well, that quick, and then look that good. That's not too shabby at all. Look at that, that's beautiful. Crisp, straight line. No cracking. Absolutely gorgeous. Here's a little bit of interest. Now this is an expensive piece of leather. Well, any leather really should be worked as little as possible. Do the bare minimum to it until you put it together, and when you put it together it looks nice. So one thing you wouldn't do is take a really, really nice expensive piece of leather and a really, really rough board, turn it over and start putting pressure on the leather from the wrong side by sanding down the edges for gluing. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. I am not being gentle with this leather at all. one thing you need to know about a decent piece of leather is how it reacts to you working. If it's going to scar, if it's going to crease, if it's going to pick up every little delicate mark that you add. Yeah, no. Not too shabby at all. No, I wouldn't normally do that. I'd put something under there. That's a really silly idea. But I do want to push this. I want to push the boundaries and really find out how good it is. I've got to say that it's not too bad at the moment. I'd stuck the lining to the leather, but it hasn't stuck that well. And I think that it's so stuffed with oils and waxes and treatments that it really is pushing the glue away. So I've trimmed the edge of the lining to glue for the gusset to go on there to attach to. So I'm going to stick it all together, then we'll come back to the stitch, and I just thought I'd throw that little gem in there.
So we've got the two bits stuck together at the top. Let's see how they burnish up. Don't do that. How's that? Absolutely dream. Right, what we're going to do now is add some edge coat to it. Job's a good one.
2 mil thick, 2 square foot. It is remarkably resistant to being worked. Now, we always try and work the leather as little as possible. Touch it as little as possible, so when the item is finished the leather looks as pristine as possible. The customer can crease it, the customer can give it a squish, not you. But here I have been very, very brutal. I've not been kind to this leather at all. I wanted to see how much it could take, and I've got to say it took a lot. I've been sanding the edges on the back with the face down on the rough board. I've split it from face down, which normally you'd split face up so the face comes away without stress. I've split that face down, pulling the face of it. It's coped remarkably well. It's stitched really, really nicely. It's strong, robust. But the short version is, and I shall put a link down below here, horsecordovan.com. That's where this is from in Italy. €139 for a 2 mil thick small piece of shell cordovan. They do slightly larger, slightly thicker and slightly thinner as well, so you can find pretty much what you want. But there we go, there's a nice little 7-inch pouch with a plate at the top, lined, hand stitched in cream. It's slam thread as it happens. That's come out quite